He came to explain his truth. He didn't expect his story to be questioned. Bill Maher didn't raise his voice. He didn't interrupt. He just asked one question. And for the first time on American television, Prince Harry realized this was a room he couldn't control. Prince Harry sat across from Bill Maher under studio lights that felt colder than usual. The set of Real Time with Bill Maher was never warm. It wasn't designed to comfort guests. It was designed to expose them. 2 chairs, a small table, no distractions, no applause signs begging the audience when to react, just silence, shadows, and a city glowing behind glass. Harry adjusted his jacket slightly as the cameras rolled. He looked calm, composed, trained. This wasn't his first difficult interview. He had survived British tabloids, royal correspondence, parliamentary hearings, and viral headlines. Tonight, he told himself, was just another conversation. Bill Maher leaned back in his chair, hands loosely folded, eyes alert but relaxed. "Prince Harry," Bill said, voice even. "Welcome." "Thanks for having me," Harry replied, nodding politely. The audience applauded briefly, then silence returned. Bill didn't rush. "You've spoken a lot," he began, "about breaking free, about choosing your own life, about escaping what you've described as a suffocating system." Harry nodded again. "That's right." And Bill continued, "You've also said the price of that freedom was immense." Harry exhaled slowly. It was. The first 5 minutes were smooth, almost disarmingly so. Harry spoke about mental health, about generational trauma, about choosing family over institution. He used words he had refined over years. Healing, honesty, boundaries, truth. Bill listened, didn't interrupt, didn't challenge. That made Harry uneasy. And yet, Bill said finally, tilting his head slightly, "I keep wondering about something." Harry looked up. "Sure." Bill smiled faintly. "You talk about escaping privilege," he said. "But you escaped it with a Netflix deal, a memoir, a global platform." The audience murmured softly. Harry stiffened just a little. "Well," he said carefully, "having a platform doesn't negate pain." Bill nodded. "True. Pain doesn't disappear because you're wealthy." He paused. "But wealth does change how pain is received." Harry frowned slightly. "I'm not sure I understand." Bill leaned forward just an inch. "When a man born into unimaginable privilege says, 'I was silenced,'" Bill said calmly, "people listen. But they also ask, by whom?" The silence stretched. Harry shifted in his seat. "The institution," he said. "The press, the expectations." Bill nodded again. "Right. But here's the thing." He looked directly at Harry now. "You weren't silenced. You were edited." A ripple moved through the audience. Harry's jaw tightened. "With respect, Bill, that feels dismissive." Bill raised a hand gently. "Not dismissive. Distinct," he continued. "Being silenced means no voice. You had one of the loudest voices in the world. What you didn't have was control." Harry leaned forward. "Control over my own life is exactly what I was denied." Bill didn't argue. "That may be," he said, "but when control becomes the goal, sometimes the story becomes less about freedom and more about narrative management." Harry's eyes flashed for the first time. "So, you're saying my experience was a branding exercise?" "No," Bill replied smoothly. "I'm saying it became one." The room felt suddenly smaller. Harry opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "I didn't ask for this level of scrutiny." Bill tilted his head. "No, but you monetized it." A sharp intake of breath echoed from somewhere in the audience. Harry laughed once, not amused. "That's an unfair characterization." Bill shrugged lightly. "Is it?" He glanced at the camera, then back to Harry. Book deals, streaming deals, speaking tours, therapy specials, all built around a central message. "Here's what they did to me." Harry's voice hardened. "You don't get to define my healing." Bill's smile faded, not into hostility, but into focus. "I'm not defining your healing," he said. "I'm questioning your business model." The words landed heavier than shouting ever could. Harry leaned back, crossing his arms. "This is exactly the problem," he said. "People like you think trauma has a correct aesthetic." Bill replied instantly. "No. I think trauma becomes dangerous when it turns into identity." The audience went completely silent. Harry stared at Bill, and for the first time since the interview began, he didn't respond immediately. Because something had shifted. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was a dismantling. And they were only just beginning. The silence after Bill Maher's last sentence stretched longer than anyone expected. Prince Harry uncrossed his arms slowly, as if doing it too fast might expose more than he intended. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that tried to convince the room everything was still fine. "You're oversimplifying," Harry said. "Trauma doesn't become an identity just because people finally listen." Bill nodded once, calm, patient. "True," he replied. "But when listening becomes applause and applause becomes income, it's fair to ask where healing ends and performance begins." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the audience. Not supportive, not hostile, just nervous. Harry leaned forward now, elbows resting on his knees. "You talk about income like it disqualifies suffering," he said. "Would you say the same thing to a war veteran who writes a book?" Bill didn't hesitate. "No," he said, "because that veteran didn't grow up inside a palace." The audience reacted immediately. Soft gasps. A low murmur. Harry's eyes narrowed. "So now my birth invalidates my pain." "No," Bill said evenly. "It contextualizes it." He leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. "Here's what fascinates me," Bill continued. "You say you walked away from power, from privilege, from a crown." Harry nodded. "I did." Bill tilted his head. "But you didn't walk into anonymity. You walked into celebrity martyrdom." Harry exhaled sharply through his nose. "That's insulting." "Is it inaccurate?" Bill asked. Harry shook his head, a short laugh escaping him. "You're framing this like I orchestrated my own exile." Bill's voice softened, which somehow made it sharper. "I think exile implies rejection," he said. "You weren't rejected. You were still invited everywhere." Harry's voice rose slightly. "Invited to be attacked, to be dissected, to have my wife torn apart." Bill nodded again. "Fair. Meghan was treated brutally." No argument there. Harry relaxed just a fraction until Bill added, "But here's where people struggle, Harry. When you talk about cruelty, you do it from a place most people will never experience. Security, lawyers, global sympathy." Harry sat up straighter. "So what's the acceptable level of suffering for someone like me?" he asked. "How miserable? Do I need to be before it counts?" The audience went quiet again. Bill looked at him for a long moment. "That's not the question," Bill said. "The question is why you need it to count so badly." Harry blinked. "I don't," he snapped. Bill raised an eyebrow. "Then why keep proving it?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Harry ran a hand through his hair, irritation now visible. "You know what?" he said. "This is exactly why people don't speak up. Because the moment they do, someone with a microphone decides they're exaggerating." Bill didn't interrupt. "And when that person happens to be a prince," Harry continued, "suddenly, the pain has to meet some arbitrary quota before it's acceptable." Bill leaned forward slightly. "Pain doesn't need permission," he said. "But credibility comes from consistency." Harry frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," Bill said, "you can't say you want privacy and then sell intimacy." A ripple of applause broke out before the audience could stop itself. Harry's face hardened. "You think I enjoy reliving this?" he asked. "You think I want to talk about my mother's death over and over?" Bill's expression shifted. "Just a little more serious now." "No," he said quietly. "I think you've learned that the world only listens when you do." The room froze. Harry swallowed. "My mother died because of that world," he said, voice tight. "Because of people who wouldn't leave her alone." Bill didn't look away. "And yet," he said, "you keep inviting the world back in." That did it. Harry straightened fully in his chair, voice louder now. "You're making it sound like I exploit my own trauma." Bill responded instantly. "No. I'm saying the system rewards you for never letting it heal." The audience gasped audibly this time. Harry stared at Bill, disbelief etched across his face. "That's a disgusting thing to say." Bill didn't flinch. "It's an uncomfortable thing to hear," he corrected. "There's a difference." Harry shook his head slowly. "You sit there," he said, "protected by cynicism and judge people who actually try to change things." Bill smiled faintly. "Cynicism is just optimism with experience." A few laughs slipped out. Harry didn't laugh. "You think this is funny?" Harry asked. "No," Bill said. "I think it's tragic." Harry scoffed. "Of course you do." Bill continued, voice calm but firm. "You want the world to see you as a man who escaped a toxic institution, but you still speak like someone who wants its validation." Harry leaned forward aggressively now. "You have no idea what I want." Bill met his gaze. "I think you want absolution." The word hit hard. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. The audience could feel it. That subtle shift where anger begins to override strategy. Bill glanced briefly at the audience, then back at Harry. "And absolution," he added, "is something you don't get from interviews." Harry's breathing quickened slightly. So what? He said. I should just shut up, fade away, let the narrative be written without me? Bill shook his head. No, he said. You should decide whether you're telling your story or fighting one. The studio light seemed harsher now. Harry leaned back, crossing his arms again. Defensive. Closed. For the first time, he looked less like a guest and more like a cornered man. The host's voice cut in softly from off-camera, announcing a short break. As the camera pulled back, Bill remained still, composed. Harry stared at the floor, and somewhere in the silence between them, it became clear. This wasn't about royalty anymore. It was about identity. When the cameras came back from the break, something had changed. Prince Harry was still in his chair, but the posture was different now. His shoulders were stiff. His jaw set tighter. The defensiveness was no longer subtle. It sat openly between him and Bill Maher like a third presence. Bill noticed it immediately. He didn't rush. He waited. Before the break, Bill said calmly, we were talking about identity. Harry nodded once. Short. Sharp. You said you don't want validation, Bill continued. You said you don't want absolution. Harry cut in. Because I don't. Bill raised a hand gently. Let me finish. The audience went silent. Here's the question, Bill said, voice even. If tomorrow the camera stopped, the book stopped selling, the interview stopped, who would you be then? Harry froze. Not angry. Not yet. Just caught. I'd still be me, he said after a beat. Bill smiled faintly. Would you? Harry frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Bill said, leaning forward slightly, that most people don't get to build their entire sense of self around opposition. Harry shook his head. You're saying my identity is built on conflict. I'm saying, Bill replied, it's built on resistance. Harry laughed, but it sounded brittle. And what's wrong with resisting injustice? Nothing, Bill said. Unless the injustice becomes the only thing that gives you purpose. The audience murmured. Harry leaned forward, voice rising. You think I enjoy this? Being labeled, being attacked, being mocked. Bill nodded slowly. No. I think you've learned how to survive it. Harry paused. And survival, Bill added, can become addictive. That landed harder than anything before. Harry's eyes flashed. That's ridiculous. Is it? Bill asked. You left the monarchy to escape pain, but every chapter since has required reopening it. Harry clenched his hands together. You don't heal by pretending it didn't happen, he snapped. No, Bill agreed. You heal by not making it your headline forever. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the room. Harry's voice sharpened. So, what's your solution? Silence. Bill shook his head. Perspective. Harry scoffed. Easy to say from where you sit. Bill didn't deny it. Yes, he said. It is. The honesty disarmed the room. That's exactly why people listen to you, Harry, Bill continued. Because you didn't come from nowhere. You came from everything. Harry stared at him. But when someone born into everything tells the world he's been robbed, Bill said, people start asking, robbed of what exactly? Harry's face reddened. My childhood, he said. My mother. My autonomy. Bill's voice softened again. Those are real losses, he said. Tragic ones. Harry relaxed just a fraction. But, Bill added, they don't automatically make you a moral authority. The relaxation vanished. You don't get to decide that, Harry snapped. No, Bill said. The public does. Harry laughed again, louder this time. Oh, the public, he said sarcastically. The same public that feeds on tabloids and hate. Bill shrugged. The same public. That buys your books. The audience gasped. Harry stood halfway up before catching himself. You keep framing this like I owe people something, he said, voice tense. Like I need their permission to speak. Bill leaned back. No, he said. But when you ask them to listen, you invite their judgment. Harry ran a hand through his hair. This is exactly the problem, he said. People like you, careful, Bill interrupted gently. Harry paused, then continued. Anyway, people like you, he said, use intellect to dismiss lived experience. Bill smiled thinly. And people like you use lived experience to avoid scrutiny. The audience went completely still. Harry's breathing was visibly heavier now. You're twisting everything, he said. Bill tilted his head, then untwisted it. Harry hesitated. I wanted freedom, he said finally. I wanted a life where I wasn't defined by an institution that never cared about me. Bill nodded. And yet, everything you say still begins there. Harry's voice cracked slightly. Because it never lets go. Bill didn't miss the opening. Or because you don't, he said. The words hit like a punch to the chest. Harry stood up this time, not fully storming. Not yet, but standing. You're crossing a line, he said quietly. Bill remained seated. I think, he replied. That line was crossed a long time ago. The host's voice broke in nervously. Let's all take a breath. Harry ignored it. You're turning this into entertainment, Harry said. My life, my pain. Bill looked up at him. No, he said calmly. You already did. I'm just asking why. The silence was unbearable. Harry stared down at Bill, chest rising and falling. For the first time, the audience saw it clearly. This wasn't anger anymore. It was exposure. Bill spoke one last time before the break. Harry, he said softly, if your story ends the moment you stop telling it, was it ever about healing at all? Harry didn't answer. He turned away from the chair. The cameras cut. When the cameras came back on, no one spoke for the first 3 seconds. 3 seconds on live television felt like an eternity. Prince Harry was standing, not pacing, not shouting, just standing there, hands loosely at his sides, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the lights, beyond Bill Maher, beyond the audience, as if he were already halfway gone. Bill Maher remained seated, calm, still unmoved. The contrast was brutal. Harry, the host said carefully, voice tight with tension. Let's just sit back down. And Harry raised a hand. No, he said quietly. The word wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Finity. Bill looked up at him. Not challenging, not smug, curious. You asked me who I'd be without the cameras, Harry said, turning back toward Bill. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with fury held on a leash. You ask me who I am if the story ends. Bill nodded once. I did. Harry swallowed. What you don't understand, he continued, is that this story doesn't end because people like you won't let it. Bill leaned forward slightly. Or, he said evenly, because you won't. That was it. Something inside Harry snapped, not explosively, not theatrically, but decisively. You sit there, Harry said, voice rising now. Behind irony and intellect, pretending you're above it all, like you've cracked the code of human suffering. Bill didn't interrupt. You reduce everything to narratives, Harry went on. Victim, hero, villain, as if real lives fit into your neat little frameworks. Bill finally spoke. Frameworks are how we understand patterns. Harry laughed sharply. No, frameworks are how you avoid responsibility. The audience shifted uncomfortably. You want to know why I keep talking? Harry said, pointing at the floor between them. Because silence is what protected them. Silence is what killed my mother. A gasp rippled through the room. Bill's expression changed. Not defensive, not angry, but serious in a way that cut deeper. Don't do that, Bill said quietly. Do what? Harry snapped. Turn her into a shield, Bill replied. She deserves better than that. The words landed like ice water. Harry's eyes widened. How dare you, he whispered. Bill held his gaze. How dare you, he said calmly. Use her memory to shut down any question that makes you uncomfortable. The studio felt like it was holding its breath. You don't get to decide how I grieve, Harry said, his voice shaking now. No, Bill answered. But I get to ask when grief becomes a brand. That sentence detonated the room. Harry took a step back as if struck. The host stood halfway out of his chair. Okay, we're stopping this. But Harry wasn't listening anymore. You want honesty? Harry said, voice breaking into rawness. Fine. I'm angry. I'm tired. And yes, maybe I don't know who I am without all of this. Bill didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply nodded. That, he said softly, is the first real thing you've said tonight. The audience fell silent. Harry stared at him, breathing hard. And then something changed. The anger drained, not replaced by peace, but by clarity. You know what? Harry said slowly. I didn't come here to be dissected. Bill replied gently. No one ever does. Harry turned toward the host, then toward the audience. This, he said, gesturing around the studio, is exactly why I left. This obsession, this hunger to tear people down under the guise of truth. Bill stood up now, not to confront, but to meet him eye to eye. Truth isn't tearing someone down, Bill said. It's refusing to lie to them. Harry shook his head. You can keep your truth, he said. I don't need it. Bill nodded once. That's clear. Harry picked up the microphone from his lap, held it for a moment, then set it carefully on the chair. That quiet gesture was louder than any scream. I'm done, Harry said. He turned and walked. The camera followed him halfway to the edge of the set before the director cut wide. Too late to hide it. Too late to save the moment. The sound of his shoes echoed unnaturally loud. The door closed. The studio remained frozen. No applause, no boos, just stunned silence. The host exhaled shakily. "Well," he said, forcing a breath. "That was unexpected." Bill Maher sat back down slowly. He didn't look victorious. He looked thoughtful. "Sometimes," Bill said quietly, "the hardest conversations are the ones we walk away from." The audience didn't clap immediately. When they finally did, it was hesitant, uneasy. Backstage, producers scrambled. Headlines were already writing themselves. Prince Harry walks off live TV after explosive exchange. Royal rebel storms out after Bill Maher's brutal question. Was this courage or collapse? Bill stared down at the desk for a moment, then looked into the camera. "For the record," he said, "I didn't want him to leave." The screen faded, and just like that, the story didn't end. It exploded. "So, what do you think? Did Prince Harry walk away to protect himself, or because the questions hit too close to home? Was Bill Maher brutally honest, or needlessly provocative?" Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy deep, high-stakes celebrity confrontations like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories where power, ego, and truth collide. Because sometimes the most revealing moments happen when someone decides they've had enough and walks.